Prometheus by Ferdinand Schmidt and Carl Friedrich Becker. Zeus, Jupiter, the mighty divinity, overcame the Titans and became the master of the heavens and the earth. But notwithstanding his hard struggle, he would not have been victor had not Prometheus, the Titan, aided him. At last, Zeus, ruler in the skies, became the enemy of Prometheus, who originated the hated race of Titans and only awaited an opportunity to punish him. He soon found the opportunity, for Prometheus was attached to mankind, whom Zeus intended to destroy, in order to people the earth with a race of older creation. Prometheus endeavored to dissuade him, but Zeus persisted in his purpose. Then Prometheus said, "Have you forgotten that the curse of the dethroned Cronus rests upon you, and that by the decrees of destiny, a mortal only can deliver you from that curse?" When Zeus heard this, he decided to spare the race of mortals. They were leading a wretched life and were unconscious of the spiritual or intellectual gifts conferred upon them by their Creator. They knew not how to fell the trees and build houses to protect them against wind, rain, and the heat of the sun. Like the beast, they lived in dens and caves which no ray of light penetrated. They knew none of the signs of the approach of the fruit-bringing autumn, nor of winter, nor blooming spring. Destitute of purpose or perception, they lived like strangers in a barren world. Prometheus pitied them. He explained to them the rising and setting of the stars and taught them how to recognize their orbits. He computed for them their numbers, a marvelous feat, gave them the power of recollection and the gift of writing, that highest of sciences. He made the ox a useful servant to the race by placing the yoke upon it and harnessing it to the cart. He bridled the wild horse and showed them how to use it for riding and drawing the wagon. They also learned from how to build vessels and manage sails. He disclosed the depths of the earth to them, with its treasures of iron, silver, and gold. Up to this time, men had no knowledge of plants or their healing qualities. Prometheus taught them how to avail themselves of this knowledge so as to relieve pain and cure disease. He also imparted to them a knowledge of what was transacted in the councils of the gods and taught them to observe the flight of the eagle. One element of comfortable living, however, was lacking for mankind. It was fire. Prometheus resolved to bring it to them from heaven, but the ruler of the skies ordered him to desist. Watching his opportunity, Prometheus soared aloft, approached the chariot of the sun, and stuck a rod which he carried in his hand in its blazing wheels. Then, descending like a falling star, he brought to man the blessing of the fire. Hermes, Mercury, the swift messenger of the gods, saw this and at once brought the news to the god father Zeus. The all-powerful one wrathfully directed Hermes, "Up, hasten to Hephaestus, Vulcan, and say that the ruler of the gods needs his service." Hephaestus, god of fire, was also god of all the artificers who engaged with fire. He was honored as the discoverer of all the implements of the chase, the house, the field, and war, and was also famous as the builder of the gold gleaming dwellings of the gods. So great was his skill that he constructed bellows which could make the flame stronger or weaker as he wished, as well as sumptuous couches, which, at a sign from him, were placed in the assemblies of the gods for their use. When Hephaestus appeared before the ruler of the skies, he was requested to make a maiden of gold. He set about the work at once, and when Apollo, the next morning, mounted his flaming chariot to shed the heavenly light both above gods and men, a splendid image was finished, which in appearance, speed, and movement resembled a beautiful mortal. Zeus then ordered the other deities to adorn the maiden, who was called Pandora, most sumptuously. The celestial ones came at once bearing gifts. From Athena, Minerva, she received a girdle. From Hore, Ours, crowned her with flowers, and the Graces adorned her with exquisite rings and bracelets. Hermes brought her a pernicious gift, that of flattery and unfaithfulness, which was to bring misfortune to men. Thus fitted out with deluding charms and seductive graces, Pandora was conducted to earth by the beautiful winged messenger. From Zeus she had received a golden box, which contained a multitude of evils dangerous to men, and from which they had suffered before Prometheus relieved them. Pandora offered it to him as a gift from Zeus. The watchful son of Titan, however, rejected the gift of the god. Thereupon Pandora offered it to Epimetheus, a brother of Prometheus. He was deluded, forgot his brother's warning, and married the fascinating Pandora. The false one immediately opened the golden box, and the multitude of evils from which Prometheus had saved mortals spread themselves abroad once more, and men found themselves again plunged into the very miseries from which they had been saved by the son of the Titan. Thus it happened that the seductive charm of woman brought misery to mortals. Zeus again summoned Hephaestus and two giants, Kratos and Bia, and said to them, "Seize Prometheus, conduct him to the limit of earth, and fasten him to one of the loftiest cliff walls of the Caucasus." The giants undertook the task willingly, but not so Hephaestus, who had compassion for Prometheus. But at last he had to submit to the will of the ruler of gods and men. Prometheus was seized and taken to the desolate cliff. Reluctantly, Hephaestus went to work to fasten the son of Titan with adamantine fetters to the cliff, while Kratos and Bia helped in the task. "Noble Prometheus," said Hephaestus, "it pains my soul to lend my skill to such a deed as this. What wretchedness awaits thee? Thousands of years must pass, and no end to thy suffering. Never wilt thou have sight of one human being to comfort thee. The strength of thy limbs will wane in the heat of the sun, and longingly thou wilt yearn for the star-sown night to cover thee with this mantle, and bring coolness to thy burning wounds." Thereupon Hephaestus and two servants of Zeus left the fettered one, who cried out, "Thou sacred sky, ye swift-winged winds, thou billowy, thundering ocean, earth, thou all-giver, sun, thou all-seer, I cry to you, behold the fate which has overtaken me, a deity. By thy decree of the ruler of all, I must endure constant bitter pain 1,000 years, but I will submit to the decree, knowing that the power of fate is irresistible." His groans were heard by the winged Oceanites in the crystalline grotto of their father, Oceanus. They hurried to him, and when they witnessed the fate of the son of Titan, they filled the air with lamentation. Sorrowfully they turned away. Soon appeared their father, the gray Oceanus, upon his winged seahorse, inquiring what Prometheus had done that he should be exposed to such a dreadful penalty. When he was told, he promised Prometheus to entreat mercy from Zeus. But Prometheus admonished him, saying, "Well, I know you have always been my friend, worthy Oceanus, but I pray you do not appeal to Zeus for me. It would avail me nothing, and only prejudice Zeus against you." Concealing his deep grief in his heart, Oceanus left the tortured one. A long time passed. Zeus, believing that the Titan's obstinate spirit had been broken, sent his winged messenger, Hermes, to him, who said, "Zeus desires to know what you heard from your brother about the marriage which, if he enters into it, will sometime precipitate his ruin. You know it, and have found how severely he punishes the theft of the fire. So anger him no longer, but tell him what he wishes to know." Prometheus replied, "Never shall Zeus know what he desires to learn until I am freed from my fetters and relieved of my torments." Hermes returned to the ruler of the skies and told him that Prometheus, in spite of his unspeakable torments, still remained obstinate. Zeus stormed wrathfully and decided to subject his victim to still more dreadful punishment. All at once, black clouds gathered over Caucasus. Fiery thunderbolts, hurled by his hand, shook the lofty, jagged cliffs, and the roar of the hurricane filled all the space between the sky and earth. "Wrathful, implacable deity," cried Prometheus, "I know this is the manifestation of thy power, but thou canst not move me." Then he heard a fearful bellowing issuing from the depths. The earth shook, and great waves hurled themselves upon him and the cliff to which he was fastened. A year ran its course, and when finished, Zeus again dispelled the darkness about the cliff, but with no intention of mitigating Prometheus's punishment. On the other hand, he determined to make it harder. He sent a vulture who attacked his body and devoured his liver. This torment was renewed daily. For every night his liver grew again. Zeus also vowed that, as Prometheus, being a god, could not die, he should hang on the cliffs of Caucasus forever. And thus it happened through many generations of men. At last the spirit of Titan's son was broken, and he longed for peace and freedom. The other Titans, who were once overcome by Zeus and hurled into Tartarus, had long regained their freedom. Reconciliation, however, seemed impossible, for Zeus had once vowed he would not send away the vulture and strike off his fetters unless a deity should undertake to descend into dark Tartarus. At this time, Hercules, a son of Zeus by a mortal, was traversing the world, fighting every monster which was endangering the human race. In his travels, he came to Caucasus. To his utter astonishment, he saw the son of a god fastened there and asked him why he had to endure such agonies. Thereupon Prometheus told him of his fate, and Hercules determined to rescue him. throwing aside his lion skin and club, and taking a poisoned arrow from his quiver, he shot the vulture, tore his claws from the Titan's groin, and threw him into an abyss. Then Hercules released him from his chains and conducted him to Zeus. Prometheus unwillingly announced to him that a marriage with the beautiful sea nymph Thetis would be his ruin. The reconciliation, however, was not complete, for Zeus's vow was not yet satisfied. He gave Prometheus a gold ring in which Hephaestus had set a little stone from the Caucasus. "Promise me always to wear this ring," said Zeus, "and my vow may be accomplished." Prometheus took the ring and made the promise. Then Hercules fetched Chiron, whom he had unintentionally wounded with a poisoned arrow, to the deity Chiron, who was suffering unspeakable torments and longed to die, gladly descended into Tartarus. Thus the conciliation was complete. Warned by Prometheus, Zeus married Thetis to a mortal, King Peleus. At once a multitude of lovely sea nymphs came to escort the bride and groom in festal procession. Zeus and the other divinities also joined in the festivities and celebrated the marriage of the beautiful sea nymph.